All right, welcome everybody, and wonderful to see everyone on a nice. Is it Wednesday? I don't even know what date it is anymore. Wednesday, I think. Wednesday night, and of course, hopefully everybody's doing okay through stage 4, our curfew. And I know that a lot of people have been speaking to me over the term, and a lot of people obviously wondering how it is to be a police officer in today's day and age and climate. So I thought it'd be nice to host two well-known police officers. Well, I think at least I know Rowan's pretty well known in my community because he's done a number of talks, but it's wonderful to welcome Rachel Shenser, who's going to be our main guest speaker, and Rowan, of course, will ask Rowan a couple of questions. And tonight is really just getting to understand their lives, their world, and they're both Jewish police officers. I think it's got another angle of interest, which I know a lot of people would be curious to hear about. So tonight's format really is going to be, I'm going to have a chat to Rachel and to Rowan, ask them a number of questions, but I will be monitoring the chat box. So if anyone does have any questions, Rachel and Rowan, I hope you don't mind answering some of the questions from the public. We won't be able to, unmute you because it'll just be chaotic.
Oh, that's fine.
But we'll take questions. So once again, we want to thank Rachel and Rowan for joining us tonight, taking time out of their schedule. Rachel's actually currently on shift, and she's gotten permission as part of the community service to join our community. And Rowan was supposed to be on shift, but his shift changed. So he's joining us from home, taking time away from his wife and his child. So sorry, Rowan, we do appreciate you giving us of your time.
That's right. I think my wife will join me soon.
Oh, good. Fantastic. So I'll let the two of you sort of discuss your own ranks and explain the stripes. And it looks like you both have the same rank. You can see the stripes on their shoulders. So Rachel, we'll start with you. Firstly, once again, a big thank you to you for joining us tonight. And I think the first question I'd like to just ask both of you, and Rachel, if you can start, is really just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you landed up becoming a police officer. I think a lot of people will be interested. As I said, traditionally, it hasn't been a job that Jewish people did, through the ages. But certainly, I know as a police chaplain, I work as a police chaplain actually at Rachel's station, where she's now, and quite a lot more Jewish people are joining the force. In particular, many are coming through the CSG. But Rachel, how did you land up where you are? Tell us a little bit about yourself. And again, thank you on behalf of everyone for your time tonight.
No, thank you for having me. Well, I decided at the age of 35, so that was telling my age now, nearly 10 years ago, with a 2 and 4-year-old.
Yeah.
I decided to join Victoria Police. Always wanted to join, and it took me until I was 35 to join. So I've been in, it'll be next month, it'll be 10 years since I joined the academy, and next February, 10 years since I graduated.
Wow.
Yeah, I love it. So now my kids are 12 and just 15, and I've always worked full time. I became a sergeant in February. Before working, I'm now at Moorabbin. Before that, I was 6 months at Dandenong before I got the job here. So very different policing in Dandenong to Moorabbin. But yeah, I just love it. So much fun. Love it every day.
And what would you say was, so you said you always wanted to be a police officer. Why do you think that is? What part of it that attracted you to it?
Just that no day is the same, and you're always doing something different. There's so many different areas that you can go into. So yeah, that's mainly what attracted me to it. But yeah, just got the physical side of it. You can go into so many different areas. Yeah. You never get bored in the police force ever.
Fantastic. And you said you at 35 years old, you went into the training. And how was that? How did you find that getting into it? And sort of, how many people would you say join the force at that age?
Look, now there are more, because at my last station there was a recruit that graduated when he was 52. So there are more now, but when I went through, I was the oldest. I was second oldest. One was, I think, a year older than me in the squad. Everyone else was sort of early 20s, and I was 35.
Yeah.
But now you've got a really big mix from probably 18 right through to 50 years old. If you can pass the fitness and you pass that, you can get in, you pass everything else. So there's no age restriction.
Yeah. So as long as you can get through the tests, no problem.
Yep. Exactly.
Wonderful. And Rowan, what about you? How did you find yourself as a police officer in 2020?
Well, 2020, that's nearly 10 years as well. So, just as a kid, always wanted to be a police officer from a very young age. As most little boys want to be police, fire, because it seems exciting at the time. And then, when I was 19, 20, I just woke up one morning and I decided to apply for the police force. So, I sort of forgot about it in my teenage years. And then, I just decided, I woke up one day and I said, why not apply? So I applied, and 6 months later, I was at the police academy, probably about 3 or 4 months before Rachel, and graduated November 2010. So 10 years as well in the job, and great job. I just think the appeal to me is the variety.
Sorry, Rowan, I muted you by mistake. Oops. Sorry
Is that better?
Yeah, sorry, I muted you both by mistake there.
That's right. So not just the variety.
Some people say the sound's not so good. I just want to, I can see. Kathy, is
better?
you okay, Kathy? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear all right?
Yeah, is that better? Cool.
Yeah.
So not just the variety of work, but the variety of different places you can work. Anywhere in the state of Victoria, country, metro, suburbs. So I think it's just the variety of just choice is what's really appealing to the police force. And like Rachel said, nowadays people are joining at 50, 40, 50, a lot more, because they're still 20, 25 years in the job, which is a long time. So the appeal to people in their middle ages, I guess 40s, is good, is high, because they can still have a good career for 20, 25 years, a really enjoyable career.
Wonderful. Rachel, we'll go back to you. If you can just talk us through, a lot of people might be, sort of not really understand the badges on your shoulders, but can you tell us what roles you've had, and what's your current status in terms of your position?
This is, sergeant. When you've got 3 chevrons, you're a sergeant. So when you join up, you start as a constable, and then after 2 years, you become a first constable. Then 2 years after that, if you pass the exam, you become a senior constable. Then promotion from then on, you have to apply for jobs and do upgrading. So you'll go out to another station, or you might be at your own station, and you'll perform duties as an acting sergeant. So going out on the road as you normally would do, as I was doing prior, but you will supervise multiple police units, so police cars that are out on the road responding to 000 calls, basically. So we're there to make sure that all of the other police are safe, and if they need us, and sometimes we need to sign paperwork as sergeants and coordinate if there's a big incident. So we need to be able to coordinate all the resources that we need to deal with the incident.
Wonderful. So we will don't, a lot of people are messaging me privately to ask about all sorts of things that have happened recently. Don't worry. I've got lots of questions up my sleeve for Rachel and Rowan, so we will get to it. So if you feel in about 20 minutes or half an hour, if we haven't addressed your question, I'll certainly address things that you guys want to ask. So no pressure there. Just feel free to put them in the chat box, but I will get to them as we go along. Rowan, I know this is a bit of and I obviously want to hear Rachel's view, but I'm just curious to start with you. Gender equality. Now, it's wonderful to see a Jewish female police officer who joined at 35, who's rank of sergeant. How have you felt as a male to start? How have you seen, has there been issues in terms of gender equality? Clearly, many of your bosses would be female. And how do you feel that some of your colleagues interact with the male and female dynamic? And do you think, have you seen a change in the 10 years you've been there? And then Rachel will go to you and get females, your real lived perspective.
Yeah, so I think in the 10 years I've been in the job, there's definitely been a big shift towards equality, not just in terms of having equal amounts of males and females, but also having females in leadership positions as well, which we've seen recently with a couple of assistant commissioner appointments and deputy commissioner appointments as well. And that started in the Christine Nixon era, so around 2008, 2009, with that shift towards gender equality. And I've been really lucky. I've worked at police stations with a really good mix. I think at the moment, VicPol is looking at about a 35, 40, 60 split. So it's getting towards that 50-50. Whether it gets there or not, I don't know what the future numbers are looking like. But, I've been really lucky and fortunate to work with some amazing colleagues of both genders, not just male, but not just female either. And obviously Rachel being one of them, and other colleagues of mine are really strong role models within their communities, but also for their genders. Like one of my favourite bosses, she's a female inspector, and which is a couple of ranks above what we are now. And she's someone that you really want to work towards. And I've got male inspectors, or had male inspectors, who make it difficult for everybody. So I don't see the gender so much. I see the person, see the rank. Obviously, we've got to respect the rank as well. It's a very paramilitary style job. It's not quite military levels, but it's almost there. And we've got to respect the rank. But I think as well, if you can respect the person, no matter what gender they are, it makes your life and job a lot easier.
Wonderful. And Rachel, have you experienced it? Obviously, being a female, would you agree with Rowan's sentiments? What's been your experience in the force?
Yeah, I haven't experienced any discrimination at all. I haven't had any issues in my nearly 10 years in the police force at all. I know they're pushing towards 50-50, but we need to recruit more females into the job if we're going to do that, because at the moment we don't have obviously a 50-50 balance. But I mean, where I am now, there's another 2 female sergeants, which is great, because I've been at Dandenong, I was one of 2. At Bayside, when I was upgraded, I was the only female there. So it's good to have that mix of, both male and female, because we approach things differently, males and females generally. So you need that mix of people. And as well, our workforce, I mean, I've got troops here, males and females, so they need to be able to relate as well. So I think it's great that we have such a mix. We have 2 senior sergeants here, one's female, one's male. So we've got one of each. And our superintendent here is female.
Yeah, so it's wonderful. And I'm assuming if you would probably speak to some of your older colleagues and perhaps the retired police, it would be a different experience for those who were, let's say, 30 years ago or 20 years ago. It probably would not have had a similar answer to what you've both said.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely changed.
And it's wonderful. It's really good to see. And would you agree with Rowan in terms of the rank? Is that really is that only what sort of should be considered in terms of?
Yeah, the rank and the way the person manages. That's why you respect them.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to respect the rank, but when you get a good manager, regardless of whether they're male or female, they're a good manager.
Yeah. Very good. Rowan, I'll go back to you. This is, a little bit of a sensitive question. So hopefully if you guys don't feel comfortable really getting too emotional about it, or I know it's been a while, but it certainly was at the top of my mind, obviously a few weeks ago, or now it's a few months ago already, but when 4 officers were tragically killed in that horrific accident. I know, Rowan, you knew one of them personally, and it was part of a route that you've done on many occasions. So how does it feel as when a fellow officer, gets killed in the line of duty? And how did it feel at that time? Did you feel a lot of camaraderie? How did you feel the community reacted? Just some thoughts and reflection, and then Rachel, we'll turn to you as well.
Yeah, so I was at home when I heard the news, and then my first reaction was, I need to go to work. Even though I was off duty, I need to go to work. I need to be there for my colleagues, because it's actually in the area that I work in. So people that attended that job, I know. One of my best mates hasn't actually come back to work since. So, mentally has really struggled with it, which is totally understandable. It's a job that realistically no one should ever go to and ever does want to go to. And yeah, look, in terms of our camaraderie at work, I think it's been even better since then. You know, we're all looking out for each other. And Graham Ashton, the previous chief commissioner, was big on the mental health side of things. So he was someone who actually took time off himself to look after his own mental health. So it showed the people below him that it's possible and that it can be done. And I think that's been a really big shift in, you know, definitely in 10 years, and I know Rachel's probably the same, there's been a big shift in going between not talking about your feelings to talking about your feelings, which is great. And the community outpouring and the community support has been and continues to be amazing since then. And, you know, sometimes it takes a tragedy to really get that support behind you. But since then, it has been amazing, you know, not just the food parcels and the deliveries and all that sort of stuff, which is really great, but just walking down the street and people say thank you. And, you know, people are really appreciative of what we actually do. You know, a lot of the times you only see one side of something, an incident. Like recently it has been, you know, since all the COVID stuff has been on the news, you're generally only seeing one side of the incident. So seeing that real life side of things, so police officers getting killed, not that it's nice or, you know, what we want, obviously it's definitely not what we want, but seeing the real life side of things really open people's eyes to, hey, these people are just people. They're part of communities, they're, you know, football coaches, their parents, their husbands, their wives. And I think it's really opened the community in general, the people's eyes to the police and who we really are.
Yeah, wonderful. Rachel, I remember seeing you actually at the station.
It was the next day, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was a very surreal feeling being around. I remember we stood outside for the minute silence. Obviously,
you can tell them the question I asked you next.
That's right. Well, what were your reflections? You can tell them.
I walked into work that day and I started to cry, not because, I mean, it was pretty upsetting, but I walked into the kitchen and it was filled with flowers and food, and it just kept coming for about a week. I mean, we're in Moorabbin, we're not right near the area, but people were bringing in chocolates and gifts, and little kids were making cards. I even got kosher cookies with Bezrat Hashem written in the corner of the card. Like, it was just amazing. I just couldn't believe the outpouring of affection, and didn't expect it at all. We all didn't expect it, because usually we just cop the front of the Herald Sun or, you know, some video on news.com. So this was amazing. Yeah, it was.
And I remember I was visiting between Moorabbin and Bayside, and it just, you know, for the few days after, it was incredible. It just was nonstop.
It went on for over a week. We just, filled with flowers, just absolutely filled. We were putting them in buckets. We didn't have vases or jars. Like, we were running out of places to put flowers. We had so many. It was lovely. And a cafe filled our fridge full of meals, and it was just amazing.
And how did it feel, you sort of moving on with the job? I know that it sounds maybe insensitive, but you have to move on and you have to focus. And like, how do you think you and others sort of cope with this, you know, hearing these stories and then trying to do your job?
Well, it gives you a bit of a shock. You kind of remember that you're not superhuman and that these things can just happen like blink of an eye. You go to work and then, you know, the day turns out very differently to the way you planned. And with policing, that can be a great thing because you can go to work and you're never bored. But, you know, on the flip side, things like that can happen that, you know, just shocked all of us. We were all upset, whether you knew them. I didn't know any of the members, but members here knew some of the other members who were fairly new police, and they were, you know, quite upset. But you're just upset because it's one of your own. It could have been any one of us.
Yeah.
You know,
do you think it highlighted the sort of the brotherhood or sisterhood or the connection, the camaraderie, like that it is a police family? Because you often hear, you know, police talking about the police family. Did you feel that was highlighted over that event?
Yes, definitely. But also the appreciation that the community has, because if I repeated half of the things that get yelled out at us when we're out on patrol. You'd be, make your beard go straight and your hair go curly. But, just to have people appreciating what we do, and we don't do it for appreciation, but it was just nice to know that people actually did care, and majority do care, and the minority are the ones that, causing us issues and treating us badly.
Yeah. Well, I see Rowan's wife's joined him, so we might hear from Tova shortly. But I'm just curious, how do your kids? Have you got older kids who obviously can comprehend the risks of the job? Do they think about it? Mom going out on the road and a dangerous job. How did it affect them? If you're comfortable to answer that?
I try not to let them watch the news because I'll see something involving police if police have been hurt, and they get a bit, not so much my son, my daughter gets a little bit funny about it, but I explained to her what happened that day, and I said, look, it can happen to anybody, anytime. It's, we always try to be safe, and because she was pretty upset by it. And then in the end, I just had to say, and I don't work for the Highway Patrol, but I sometimes have to shelter them from it. But, I tell them that I take all the precautions that I can, and you can't control everything. So, sometimes it's difficult, but they're pretty good.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think there are lots. I mean, Victoria Police certainly takes your safety as a first priority. But unfortunately, that's the risk of the job, isn't it?
Yes, I think if your time comes, but, we try to take those precautions to make sure that we're safe every day, but there's some things that you just cannot control out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Tova, thank you for joining us. I know this is on the spot because we didn't tell you, put you on the spot, but just, I know that
okay.
At the time you had written some beautiful things in tribute to police. So how did you feel, just very quickly, if you don't mind answering, how it was as a wife of a police member?
In regards to what event?
When you heard that news and then knowing
right. I think I remember when it happened, it was all like a bit of a finding out. It was a bit like in stages. Like it was finding out that there's something had happened, and then it was finding out who was called out to the job, and then it was, and it because I don't think that people, like even at work, people didn't even know what was happening.
Yeah.
And so we were finding out. It was like 6 p.m. at our house. We just finished dinner, and we were finding out drips and drabs. And in the night, it was a long night. Once we found out what had happened and who was involved, and we knew, I mean, one of our closest friends was like on site straight away. And so, yeah, it was a few days of kind of just dealing with the aftermath of it. And I think that that's one of the things that I don't think, unless you're married to someone or live with someone in the job, you don't see that side of things, of like the people like you guys, you see the news and then it shakes your world, but then you can kind of carry on. Mm-hmm. With us, it kind of stands still for a few days. Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of, for me anyway, it was more of a support to Rowan, and then to our friends who are also in the force, and yeah, just being that pillar of support, I guess.
Wonderful. Thank you. Rachel, a lot of people are messaging me, so let's address the elephant in the room. A lot of people are asking questions about the incident yesterday. Now, I know you're not speaking on behalf of police and giving details, but just curious how you, as a sergeant, as police member for 10 years, and Rowan, you're not getting off easy. I'm going to ask you this as well. But I mean, how does it sit with you? Obviously, you understand that there's always deeper story to things. You've been out on the road, you deal with this on a daily basis. But how does it feel when you see things like this, and then you see the reaction of the community and people just rushing to make judgments and so on? How do you feel about it?
The circumstance of that incident, I'm not aware of. It didn't occur in my area. I didn't witness it, so I don't know anything really about it other than what's been played on the media. Yeah. However, I do know that, you don't always get the full story from somebody's camera, someone's filmed this. We don't know what's happened before, etc. We don't know what what the reasons were. So I know it's a bit of a diplomatic answer, but I honestly do not know what occurred. So I can't comment and say, you know, I think this was or wasn't justified.
Right. And how do you feel like if you know, your fellow police officers, if you guys and women feel, you know, find out that someone has done something wrong, like how does it feel, you know, when you come to work the next day? Is there a, you know, is there sort of a notion to try and defend each other, or do you guys feel like if someone stepped out of line, we've got to just call what's wrong? Like how does it feel on the ground level?
Well, I can, you know, speak for myself and the people that I work with.
Yeah.
If someone's done something wrong, they've done something wrong. If, you know, it's gone through the procedures, say it's gone through court, etc. Someone's done something wrong, they've done the wrong thing, whether they're police or not, and we're held to a higher standard. So, you know, we're expected to uphold that standard, and it can be disappointing when, you know, other members don't uphold that standard, when it tars us all with the same brush. So yeah,
So,
it can be frustrating, but
what would you ask the public to do in a situation like this? What would you, if you had a magic wand and tell them, would you tell them just to hang 10 and take time to just let the facts come out? What would you suggest?
well, I dare say that Victoria Police will be looking at the incident and they will release something when they've had a look. But we all wear body-worn cameras, so I dare say they'll be looking at that footage, and I'm sure there will be some response once it's been investigated.
Yeah.
So, you know, we don't know what's happened. Unlike the US, where they release everything, they release police footage. We don't do that here because of privacy reasons. They're a bit more lax in the US, but we just have to wait and see, you know, what the outcome is.
Yeah.
I can tell you now, it's not, you know, everyone has this impression that, oh, the police get away with it. We would probably be under 10 times more scrutiny than the average person for behaving in a certain way. So we don't just get away with it.
That's
Trust
important
me.
to say. Thank you for saying that. Rowan, what do you reckon? You reckon people should just take a chill pill and, as Rachel said, just let the facts come out?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting time in history. Police are under immense pressure to enforce rules and laws that have probably never been enforced in Australia, let alone worldwide. And I think that's a big show for us, and it's really difficult for us as well, because not just on the road, but in the office, we're getting triple the amount of phone calls every day. So our guys are under immense stress and pressure as well. And I think everyone just needs to chill. Like, you're right, everyone needs to step back, look at their own actions, and understand how this is not just affecting police, because let's take that out of it, but how it's affecting everybody else. And, you know, again, I I'm trying not to watch these footage of people trying to bait police and doing the wrong thing, because it actually upsets me. It makes me quite frustrated and upset. And I just think it's ridiculous. People acting like children. I've got a 2-year-old who probably acts a lot better than these people. And I think it's really upsetting when it's shown on the media in a way that it is, because the media is there for a story, and we understand that. If there's wrongdoing, there's wrongdoing, and I'll be the first person to call it out. But in a police force of 20,000 plus operational members, plus 10,000 or so behind the scenes admin unsworn staff, I think we do a pretty good job of doing the right thing in general. And, you know, yes, you hear the stories of police doing the wrong thing, but in every profession, you're going to get a bad egg. It's not just in the police force, but teaching. I'm sure in the rabbinical profession as well. Like there's, you know, every profession has bad eggs, and unfortunately, you know, we try to weed them out in the early stages of their recruitment process, but sometimes they get through and then they get found out at the back end. So, you know, for a police force of such high numbers, we do a really good job of doing the right thing.
Thank you. And I think both of you said a very important thing. And I see some are commenting, Hannah in particular. I just want to say, I think what Rachel and Rowan were saying is that if the facts will come out, and Victoria Police will investigate it and will take action if somebody's done something wrong, and it's not sweeping under the rug. I guess what I was suggesting is to start, having this field day of comments of people either abusing the police or abusing even that person particularly, possibly. Let's wait. And of course, it's not going to, I can request all I want. People are people, and people will comment. That's certainly going to happen. But I guess to just allow things to develop and then make your assessment. And I think we both said it beautifully well, that the truth will come out and the facts will come out. And if punishments or repercussions need to happen, they certainly will. But Rachel, Rowan said something interesting, that, we're living in an age where police, like when you signed up, I don't think you ever in your life imagined you'd have to be policing people wearing masks, It's like, but how do you, I don't know if you yourself have had to enforce that particular aspect now, or if you know some of your colleagues who are doing that. What's the general morale in terms of the police being asked to do these? And as Rowan said in the beginning, your community members, your partners, your parents, your coaches, you're doing all sorts of other things, and to try, to police this thing. It's not really, I feel bad for the police that you've been put in this predicament. But how would you say the general morale of the police forces at the moment?
It's our job. We have to do it. I've done worse jobs than that in this. I've seen worse things, smelled worse things. So, yeah, look, most people are pretty good. Yeah. You just get the small minority of people that want to make a video and post it on YouTube for clicks or likes or whatever they want. And that makes the news, because at the moment, really, what else is on the news other than COVID?
Yeah.
There's nothing else. They're not reporting on anything else. Yeah. That's why I try not to watch the news.
Very good. But how does it feel being out on the? I don't know if you've had if you've been mainly in the office, or if you've been out on shift. How does it feel policing in this era when you've got cameras everywhere and you know that you're being scrutinized? Does it worry you? Not that you're going to do anything wrong.
It doesn't worry me, because I don't do anything that would give me reason to worry.
Right.
So
in the heat of,
we're always on display, cameras or no cameras. When you're in this uniform, you might as well have a flashing neon sign over your head. Everybody stares at you. You're walking into the toilet, someone's staring at you. You're buying food. Oh my God, the police are buying food. What are they doing? They're buying their lunch. Everybody stares at you. So your cameras or no cameras, there's always someone watching you, and we're just always aware of that. And it's second nature, and I don't run around doing things I shouldn't. So I don't have to remember to behave.
Yeah, good point. But Rowan, if just seeing that footage from yesterday, and again, I don't want to make any judgments or comments, but could it possibly be that in the heat of your adrenaline's rushing through your veins, things are getting out of control, that sometimes you may just do something that you're not doing on purpose, and you're not trying to step out of line, but you just react. Do you think that could be things that occur at times?
Yeah, we've all seen it. A couple of years ago in Preston, that's a big ticket item in the news. There was 4 or 5 coppers who did the wrong thing, and they were criminally charged, and went to court for it. And yeah, it does happen. But at the same time, when people are baiting police or other people in general, there's always going to be that fight or flight response. And we're trained. We are trained in those sort of situations. We get training all the time in how to deal with someone who's non-compliant. And at the end of the day, if you commit an offence, you're getting arrested, whether you like it or not. And obviously that person didn't want to be arrested, but too bad. They got arrested. And, if it looks like it's rough handling or whatever it looks like, then that person should have turned around, put their hands behind their back and done the right thing. But clearly they weren't doing the right thing. And, we've got policy, law to back us. And as long as the police are doing the right thing and can justify their actions, then I'll back them 100%.
Yeah. Rachel, someone's posted a question to me privately, and I'm not sure if you want to take this first or Rowan, but maybe we'll go to you. Someone was asking, at the top of your head, what was your most trying experience in the police force? I don't know if you have one particular incident that sticks out. I don't know if Rowan, you have something that sticks out in your mind, but is there any particular event that you think sticks out for you personally?
Oh, this one crosses over a bit between both. My brother-in-law died suddenly of a heart attack on my first day as a new sergeant at Moorabbin. And I had to go to the house where my sister was there with her 2-week-old baby. My mum had just died 2 weeks earlier. So I was halfway between sister and trying to be a police officer because I knew that the Caulfield divisional van were coming and I knew everybody that worked on that van. They all knew me. And I knew what my sister was going to go through and the questions they were going to have to, I mean, they're kind, but you know, you try to be kind, but it's pretty stressful. So I found that probably the hardest thing I've done, being halfway between sister and grieving relative and police, because the police are upset because they all knew me. And so that was probably the hardest, when you've got to switch on when you're off duty. Well, yeah, it was just that probably was the most difficult.
You're sitting in between both worlds at once.
Yeah, so, you know, the police turn up and I'm there in, you know, my tracksuit, my hair's everywhere because I've bowled out of the house at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm trying to coordinate, you know, to make it as painless for my sister. And still, yeah, I found that difficult because when I've got the suit on, I'm in that mode. It was kind of, I was stuck between the two. So
That's
that can be
interesting.
hard.
I think what you said is quite powerful. You know, when you're in that suit, you're in that mode, and it reminds me. And
Yeah.
I posed this question to Rowan a few years ago because when I was a rabbi in Doncaster, I remember I was called out. You know, and again, if this is stressful to anybody, please feel be in touch with any of the support services out there. And today, there's so many which are doing incredible work. But I remember attending a suicide, and there was a lot of young officers. You know, and I went in and I saw something horrific, and I remember they were so professional and so just. I don't want to sound rude that they looked immune, but I think they just dealt with it in such a professional way that perhaps maybe they were sort of in that mode that you were just suggesting. You put on the uniform and
Yeah.
you're into police mode.
Well, I had a suicide where I had to go with 2 other female members and go and tell the family. And it was, the circumstances were terrible. Afterwards, we were parked outside down 3 houses. We all burst into tears. This woman walking past stops and says, "Are you ladies okay?" And I'm like in tears going, "This is what they don't see." You know, everybody sees, you know, all the bad stuff that police do, but they don't see a sergeant and 2 constables crying on the side of the road because they've just had to tell someone that their relative is dead after going to the actual, you know, scene as well. And yeah, that was, yeah, I think the woman was like, "Oh, thank you for all that you do." She goes, "You sure you're okay?" And we were fine, but we were just, yeah, it was just, sometimes you just have to get in the car and cry.
Wow.
And I do that often.
No, and it's so
Otherwise
important.
I'd go crazy.
No, but it's so important to hear that, because I think, you know, looking after your mental health, and I think there's, you know, at times, you know, police members in general probably had to be brave, put on a brave face, and weren't allowed to show their emotion.
Yeah.
And I know you said earlier on that police are investing so much into the mental health space. I know chaplaincy is part of the division. You've got psychologists, you've got all sorts of supports around you, because what you're seeing is hectic. I mean, the
Yes.
things that you're exposed to are, like you said, sometimes you just have to turn around and weep, you know.
Yeah, often. I'm a big softie.
Rowan, do you have any experience that sticks out in your mind?
Look, I think, looking back over 10 years, there's plenty of jobs I've been to that you remember, good and bad. But, you know, it's hard to say, but the bad ones, you do try to push away.
Yeah.
You do try to think of other things, to not think about that. And, you know, there's, like Rachel said, recently I went to a suicide, and the person lived 500 meters away from the scene. It was a car crash, and, you know, even as a sergeant, I was tasked with the role of going and speaking to his wife, and obviously being at the scene for 2, 3, 4 hours, I think, at that stage as well, and then having to, you know, drive up the road, make sure we're at the right house, and then, you know, tell someone their loved one's not coming home. there's no easy way to do that. And I know that, Rabbi, you probably experience similar things in your line of work as well. But how do you tell someone that? And you have to think on the spot. You know, the only thing I kept asking her was, "Can I make you a cup of tea?" You know, and she, at the end of the day, she said, "Yes, you can, because you keep asking me and I'm sick of you asking." But, you know, what do you do in that situation? And, you know, we don't receive a great deal of training in that, because how do you train for a spontaneous conversation? And realistically, you can't.
Yeah, so it's just having empathy, you know, you guys.
And that's right. You know, and that's exactly right. And it's just being there. And if someone tells you to leave, well, then you leave.
Yeah.
You know, because some people deal with it in different ways. Some police deal with it in different ways. I know the person I was actually working with, believe it or not, was the brother of one of the 4 police officers that died.
Oh, wow.
But this was pre-Q, so it was in maybe February this year. And I was working with him, and he wasn't coping with it. I told him to leave. I said, "Mate, I've got this. You go outside. I'll come get you in 5 minutes."
Yeah.
Because just because we are police doesn't mean that we are immune from feeling. And what Rachel said is 100% correct. And it's okay to cry. If it's in the van on the way back to the job, or back to your station, or at your station, we are human beings, and we have emotion, and yes, we have to deal with situations like the rabbi said, you know, some terrible, terrible things that we see, and you deal with it at the time, because that's professionalism, and that's what we're paid to do.
Right.
But we're not paid to be robots, and we don't have to be robots. And you know, 30 years ago, different. They probably drank away their feelings, but nowadays it's not the right way to do things. And you know, there's plenty of studies out there to show it's not. So talking about your feelings, being emotional is fine. And I think that's what people need to understand is, yeah, we see terrible things and we have to do terrible things, but I keep going back to this, we're human beings, we're part of the community, and we have emotions and feelings.
Beautiful. Spot on. Rachel, do you think that, do you feel that you're supported by police, Victoria Police, that the systems around you encourage you to search for help and to seek help if you do feel that it's taken too much of a toll on you?
Yes, I've always been very proactive from when I joined the job, just to make sure that I keep in check with my emotions, because I can come across as feisty and tough, but sometimes I can be a really big softie. So I need to make sure that I keep on top of my mental health. And if I need to talk to someone, we've got the resources, or we've got peer support officers. Even just talking with your friends who have been to a similar incident, that also helps as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm going to ask each of you just one more question from me, and then I'm just going through the chat. There's quite a lot of questions that are coming through. So we'll try to get another 10 or so minutes to try and address some of the questions asked. But I would be, if a rabbi, that I didn't address 2 Jewish officers to ask about how your Judaism sort of fits into your police work. Someone did ask, and I know, Rowan, you've done a bit of work on this side of things. One of the questions was, in fact, if somebody is observant and wants to be a police officer, is it possible? You know, I know, Rowan, you're not going to give a halachic endorsement or anything of the sort at this point, but we'll go to you first, Rowan, then Rachel will come back to you. But Rowan, how, you know, you've got an interesting story in its own right, which unfortunately we don't have time to hear tonight, about your journey in your Judaism.
Another time.
But that journey obviously involves his beautiful wife sitting next to him. But how do you feel being a Jewish police officer? Do you think it's ever come to the forefront? I know you've done a lot of work within the Jewish community, but how does it shape your role?
I think being a police officer shaped my Judaism, to answer one of your questions, because obviously there's a long story, and some of you are lucky enough to know it, and others, well, we'll have to do another talk. But it's really interesting, the question about you know, an observant Jew, because I think in this day and age, there's definitely a way that it could happen. It hasn't been tested in terms of Shabbat observance and all that sort of stuff yet, but there'll be a time. There'll be a time, 100%, where it might be tested. And I think Victoria Police will definitely be able to manage that. There'll be a way. There's always a way. There's plenty of support there. And in terms of in terms of Judaism and stuff, well, I've been pretty fortunate recently and to be the chair of the Victoria Police Jewish Network, and I'd have to rep it because why not? Which is an official employee network of Victoria Police, not just for Jewish police officers, but for anybody who works for Victoria Police who has an affiliation or a alliance with the Jewish faith, and we're there for all the community, but especially for our Jewish police colleagues. And I think it's really important to have a network and a group where people feel comfortable around each other, and we have the support. And when all this COVID is over, we'll be running events and all that sort of stuff as well. So more so now as a manager, I think I'm focusing on that side of things as well, the whole networking side of things, and trying to make Victoria Police a better place, not just for everybody, but also for Jewish people as well.
Wonderful. Rachel, how's it been as a Jewish member? Has it had any influence on your role there? Like, do people ask you, do they know that you're Jewish, that type of thing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I worked at Caulfield for 2 years, and I remember one shift, must have attended about 4 jobs in a row where someone said to me, "Oh, how's your mum?" So my partner I was working, he was just like, "Do you know everybody in Caulfield?" But so it was good from that perspective. Also, I found with reporting when I was at Caulfield that family violence reported by women they felt more comfortable reporting to a Jewish female, just because there was that that understanding there, both being Jewish and knowing how the community works. So yeah, I found that was an advantage.
The whole area. I mean, to hear that we're not immune to domestic violence.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. If anything, we probably underreport a little bit too much because we're scared about what other people will think. But I've gone to jobs and people say, "Oh, I don't want the neighbours to hear whether it be family violence or something else." You have no idea what's going on at your neighbour's house. Absolutely no idea. People would be surprised at what is going on 1 door up, 2 doors up, across the road. Everybody puts on a really good front. So
I think we're going to have to address that in another topic for sure. Unfortunately. So now there's a lot of questions, so we'll try to get through some of them if we can. Rachel, maybe you'll try this one. Somebody's written that their daughter is doing a degree in criminal justice and has always wanted to join the police force. And she wanted to know if having a degree before joining has any benefit or advantage. What would you say?
It's not a disadvantage. I mean, if you've had that background, it will probably, help you in terms of if you're up against other applicants and they haven't got a background in criminal justice, but you've studied it and, it might help you. But they don't only look at, what educational degrees. They want a cross section of the community, because not everybody has a degree. Not everybody's a tradie. Some people haven't finished school, finished school at 15 and then join the police force as adults. So they want a really good cross section. So it's the right person for the job. It's not necessarily the right certificate for the job.
Yeah. Right.
But it's, as I said, if it's something you're interested in, it shows, interest in the area, which will look good.
Would it hold you in good stead to have some type of degree? Like, do the recruiters or whoever lets you in, you just got to pass the tests that are in front of you?
Well, it just depends on the person that's interviewing. It depends on a whole lot of things, because you can go, as Rowan would know, you go for a job as a sergeant and everybody will do the same type of resume that we have to submit, but then one person will mark it 6 out of 6, someone else will mark it 2 out of 6. You'll get an interview here, you won't get one there. It just depends who's really interviewing you. I mean, they have a criteria of what they're sort of looking for, but it just depends how you present as well on the day. Life experience, they do like life experience. I've gone to a job family violence incident when I was a trainee at 35 with a 22-year-old, and the husband looked at the 22-year-old and said, "What the F would you know about being married?" So, and wanted to talk to me, and I was the brand newbie. So, we need a good cross section. So, it's a hard question to answer. It's like, how long's a piece of string? They're looking for everything all the time. I've worked with...
And you never know when it could come in handy, I guess.
Yeah. Like at Bayside, I worked with an engineer, an accountant, a lawyer, psychologist, a nurse. So all different backgrounds.
Right. Fascinating. You did mention a very, tragic story for yourself, Rachel, and some people are just writing to say they're sending you hugs and condolences and thoughts.
Thank you.
And it was a very traumatic time within the Jewish community, personally for me as well. It was really, to see such, tragedy. But we wish you and your sister and the whole family strength.
Thank you.
Rowan, the question is directed at you. Have you found that, I don't know if you've necessarily worn your kippah on shift, but your name on your badge, and of course you as well, Rachel, does sometimes give away your faith. Have you ever experienced anti-Semitism from people? I don't think from your colleagues. I think you both answer no, because I've spoken to you both about that. But have you ever had anti-Semitism from cases that you're responding to or calls that you're coming out to respond to?
No, to be honest, and I know it might surprise a lot of people. Everyone loves it. Like, I'll go to my colleagues first. They love it. They're so interested in what's going on in the Jewish faith that I can't even answer half the questions. I'm constantly messaging the rabbi asking, "Oh, how do I answer this question?" So in terms of my colleagues, I've never ever, and I've never shied away from the fact that I'm Jewish. Obviously, it's pretty hard to, but I've never ever experienced it in my colleagues. And out on the road, 10 years on the road, I've never experienced, to be honest, I've never experienced it. I've dealt with neo-Nazis, cop haters, murderers, all sorts of people, and never once has that even come into question, which is amazing. But it's just whether I've been lucky, I don't know. But I would hope to say that it's not luck, and it's actually, shows that, the tolerance of the community. But like I keep saying, and I've said it before, is Victoria Police are a part of the community. So there's going to be a part of Victoria Police that are Jewish, because that's what we are. We are representatives of the community in Victoria, and percentage wise, you look at how many Jewish people are in Victoria, and you break that down, there's probably the same amount of percentage in Victoria Police. So, I just
asked Rowan, how many Jewish cops are there that you would know of? What's our latest, 40 or 50?
We're probably looking at 40 to 60, I reckon, at the moment. Yeah. Not all police officers, but working with Victoria Police. Yeah.
Yeah. Rachel, would you say your experience is similar to Rowan's in terms of anti-Semitism?
Yeah, I haven't had any issues at all. Everyone's really interested. Actually today I got asked 1 million questions about Unorthodox on Netflix, which is clearly not the background I've come from, but I tried to answer them as well as I could. That's probably one for you, Rabbi. I haven't had any issues at all. And if you work at Bayside or Caulfield, they send you off for a day's worth of training with it's with the CSG, but they take you out to the Holocaust Museum, and then you have a falafel lunch, and you go to the shul. So there are members like at Caulfield and Bayside that are from every different cultural background, so they get to learn about it too. And it's a really good day, and they do it every 6 months, because there's an influx of members in and out of the station. So, but I haven't experienced. When I worked at Dandenong, there's a huge Muslim and Arab community there, and I went to someone that had passed away, and the dad spoke Arabic, hardly any English. He's pointing to me saying, Italiano, and I said, no, Yehud. And he goes to me, Yehud is good.
Oh, wow.
And they're sitting there, covered up, the mother's covered up, there's, verses from the Quran on the wall. Yehud is good. That's what he said to me.
Right.
So I haven't had any issues, not even out at Dandenong.
Somebody's messaged me asking, what's the relationship between VicPol and CSG? Have you been involved in that, Rachel? I know you've got.
Have you been involved with it at all?
I think Rowan has had quite a bit of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, at
Yeah.
Caulfield, we work with them when there are Jewish holidays. We'll work closely with them. We'll patrol with them as well. As I haven't been at Caulfield for a few years, but they do work closely with them. And the CSG are good because, if members of the community don't want to ring the police straight away, they'll ring the CSG. And if the CSG think it's worth reporting it onto the police, they will. So, yeah, we do work really well with them.
And we say most VicPol members that work with them find it as a positive experience?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're very helpful, definitely very helpful. And it also takes, when we'd have Hanukkah in the park, it would take the pressure off having so many police, because we only have so many police we can provide in a certain area before we're taking them from elsewhere. So, yeah, I found them to be really good, really helpful.
Fantastic.
And we have a great
Yeah, I'll just touch on that. I think for a private security industry group to work so closely and so well with Victoria Police, it's actually hats off to the CSG. I've worked probably not as close with them as Rachel may have in her past postings, but for the last 6 years working at Doncaster, Kew, Camberwell, I've been the liaison for the whole area with CSG. So I quite regularly speak to them in terms of any incidents at Bialik College or the Kew Synagogue or the Doncaster Synagogue, and I'm their person who they ask to follow up on any behaviour or sus activity in the area. So for us to have that relationship with CSG is great, and what they do for the community and Victoria Police is amazing.
Yeah, and just a shout out to them. They actually have a fundraiser today. So if you have some, I know that's not much funding, excess funding that people have today, but if you are in a fortunate position to contribute, you can go on their website and make a donation to help them do their excellent work, as you both have mentioned.
And they made us kippot for a Jewish event, which was fantastic. My son loved it. Oh, there you go.
Yes, thank you for demonstrating, Rowan. You're a good model for it. So look, we've got about another minute or two left. So just before we, put a final thoughts or comments to the two of you, I just wanted to express my sincere thanks to both of you for your time and your candor and just really sharing your experiences and answering the questions. I know we could ask another 1,000 questions, but we don't have all day, obviously. And so maybe just final question. What would be your message to the community now? I mean, I know someone's, there's one of the people been watching has told me some horrible incidents that are occurring, lots of different crime things, and people are maybe not feeling so safe. Do you find that there is sort of an increase in crime at this point, number one? And number two, as I said, just a parting message to the community, just a message of encouragement or something getting through COVID-19.
Well, I find a lot of the crime that everybody seems to be reporting on is forwarded via social media, and either half the time it hasn't occurred or it's been exaggerated. Sometimes it has occurred, but I don't think crime has actually increased. I think because now we have social media, we find out about it in 2 seconds, not in the, if anyone can remember the old letter that they used to stick in the post box from Neighbourhood Watch that would give you all the burglaries for the week, and someone had typed it out on a typewriter. So now it's instant. Someone will say, oh, I saw this happen, and then, it might not have been that in the end. There's a lot of over-reporting on social media.
Yeah.
And I think people probably need to just sit back. I know, look, I'm lucky enough that I've still got a job, that I get to come to work, but I know it's a hard time for a lot of people, and we see it in our job in terms of, the jobs we're called out to. But in the scheme of things, like, we're really lucky in Australia. We're really lucky. We haven't got, we've had a lot of deaths for Australia, but in terms of infection across the world, we're pretty compliant people. If you look at, say, someone mentioned before Israel, I could not even imagine to try and police in Israel. Oh my God, everybody would be telling me how to police to start with and yelling at me. So, you know, look, it's hard to say everyone just chill out, but I mean, we just have to sit and wait it out and, you know, get out there, go for a walk. It's like I say to the troops here, we're allowed out for an hour a day to go for a walk, do anything, get out there, get in the fresh air. It's going to be 17 the next few days. Sit in the yard, breathe in the air. Because we just always have to look at the positive. I mean, 2020 started out with, in the first 30 days, with 2 deaths for me. Like, that's how it started out. And I'm still smiling. You just have to find it.
Yeah.
I've got kids. I need to keep smiling for them. I've got a job that I need to do. And, you know, we will all get through this. We will all get through it, but we all have to be kinder to each other and, you know, not jump down each other's throats down the street because somebody's not wearing a mask. You don't know why they're not wearing a mask. They're not wearing a mask. They're not wearing a mask. Police will deal with it later. You know, we don't need to jump on that comment on social media because someone's annoyed you and start an argument and then end up worked up for the rest of the night. We just need to let things go and just wait it out. There's not much else we can do. If I had a magic solution, I'd wave my wand. My kids are going crazy at home, homeschooling. So
That's right. Well, maybe you should become the premier.
maybe federal, but a long time off. I still love this job too much.
That's right. Rowan, what about you, my friend? Someone just did ask a quick question. I don't want to deviate too much, but just very, very quickly, Rowan, if you could address this before your final comments.
Sure.
Someone's written to me twice. Just people are just interested. Do you have any type of training as part of your training in counselling or mental health issues, or that's just sort of learned from your sergeants when you're in the beginning stages?
Yeah, we do get training in all facets of policing at the police academy, but obviously it's only a short period of time and it only touches on those things. So every time we go back for training, we're always touching on different things, whether it's mental health or safer vehicle intercepts. There's so many different aspects of the police force, and yes, mental health is one of them, and especially this time, it's probably one of our higher priority things that we're dealing with. And Victoria Police have just introduced another training program, police responding in mental health events, and that's for every police officer that has to do it. It's a 2-day training course run with police and psychologists and experts in the field. So, you know, a lot of our training, a lot of our on-the-job stuff is on the job, and it's like an apprenticeship for the first couple of years where we get our hands-on training and you learn how to manage situations and speak to people. And at the end of the day, we're not mental health experts. We have certain powers under the Mental Health Act. And our end goal is to get that person before a mental health expert. You know, so we make an assessment at the time of what we're hearing and seeing.
Yeah.
And we use our better judgment calls and our expertise and experience to get that person before a hospital to the right people, because at the end of the day, we can only take it so far, and we're not the experts. So we're not trained we're not fully trained, but we are definitely doing ongoing courses in our training to develop better skills and better assessment skills of those types of people. Yeah.
Excellent.
But we also have, I don't know, do you have a PACER unit at your
Yep.
way? Yeah,
Yep.
we also have mental health clinician that starts afternoons here at 3 p.m. So they are from the crisis assessment team out of Moorabbin. They're from Monash. Out of Paran, they are out of the Alfred, and they would cover Caulfield North sort of area. Monash covers sort of Bayside and parts of Moorabbin, Bentley East, etc. So a clinician will go out with a police officer and meet the divisional van there, and this clinician will speak to this person and decide whether they can give them referrals at the scene if they're having, you know, a crisis, or if they actually need to go to hospital. So we do have that resource as well available.
That's really good to hear. I didn't know that. Excellent. Wow.
Yeah, I'll have to send you some info about it.
It's good to know. Rachel, thank you. And Rowan, and Rachel, thank you for your parting words. It was very good to hear. Thank you for that. Rowan, any parting thoughts before we wish everyone? Just before your parting thoughts, I just want to plug tomorrow night. The show goes on. There's another great event tomorrow night with her name's Orly Waba. She's going to be talking about kindness. She's really a dynamo, really passionate young woman, and she'll be joining us from Jerusalem. So 8 o'clock tomorrow night. So sorry, Rowan, didn't mean to cut you off, but
That's okay. I'll try to keep it short and sweet. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Like Rachel said, don't believe everything you hear and see on social media. Stick to the facts. That's what we do. That's what we're trained to do. Stick to the facts. You know, what is Victoria Police saying about it? What is the government saying about it? They're the facts. And, you know, especially in these times, the COVID times, 2020 has been a very down year for everybody with the bushfires and then straight into COVID. So we understand that everyone is in a bit of a state of the unknown. And if you stick to the facts and what's actually happening, it'll make your life a lot easier, I think.
Thank you. And I agree with both of your parting messages. I think, if you do need help, there's help out there. And I think people shouldn't feel ashamed or embarrassed or that they're doing something wrong. Reach out for help. And you don't have to study a new language. You don't have to, reach any fitness goals. Just get through it. As Rachel said, just sit and wait, get a bit of sunlight, and you're doing well for yourself. So, to anyone who needs help, please reach out. And thank you to you guys, and thank you to all of your colleagues for all the work you're doing. And thank you for sticking your necks out for the community. Thank you for being out there on a day-to-day basis, ensuring we're safe. And I know it's a sucky part of the job to have to enforce masks, not what you probably had dreamed of to do, but it's important now, and you just do what the need of the hour is. So thank you for that, and we wish you both success in continued growth. Hopefully those ranks start keep growing if you want them to. Thank you for joining us. I know everybody had a great insight, and thank you everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
And have a wonderful night. Laila Tov.
Well, good night.
Enjoy your last hour of shift, Rachel.
I will. Paperwork.
No worries.
Bye.
Send regards to all of them at the station. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.